All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carlos Llanos. I am a third year university student, and welcome to our TED Talk. Thank you all for being here on our first edition of TED Barranquilla. I'm going to talk to you about the import regime. Here are some of the highlights. So, what we're going to talk about in my part of the presentation, we're going to talk about the general definition of an import, understanding the import process, and the different modalities of imports. First of all, what is an import? The general definition of an import is a good or service bought in one country that was produced in another. Imports and exports are the components of international trade. Free trade agreements and tariff schedules often dictate which goods and materials are less expensive to import. A great example of a free trade agreement is NAFTA, which is the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is the free trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. And it's just a textbook example of tariff omission and just a great example of a free trade agreement. Also, imported goods or services are attractive when domestic industries cannot produce similar goods and services cheaply or efficiently. In our case, in Colombia, we tend to import a lot of refined oil because we simply just cannot do it here for a cost-effective price. Now, continuing, we're going to talk about the import process, which in short is a four-step process, which starts off with the import registration. In our case, it is done in the Office of Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Commerce, Mincomercio. More specifically, the import registry is required in instances where imports are subject to licenses, safeguards, or special import-export systems. An import registry is also required for certain goods that may be subject to different kinds of certifications by state agencies, such as ministries of agriculture, social protection, environment, and defense, such as fishing products, oil products, sanitary and phytosanitary certification, and certification of conformity with technical standards. Step 2, which is the value declaration. This is filling a customs value declaration. This is mandatory for goods valued at $5,000 or more, and for partial shipments that make up a total shipment valued at $5,000 or more. The form must be requested at one of the regional offices for the National Tax and Customs Administration, which is in our case the DIAN. Now, continuing, step 3. This is the import declaration and payments of custom duties. This step must be completed either a maximum or minimum, I should say, 15 days prior to the goods arrival at the country, or alternatively, once the goods have arrived at a customs warehouse. First, an import declaration, declaración de importación, form must be requested at a DIAN regional office. Once filled out, the importer must bring the declaration form to an authorized financial entity in the city where the goods have been landed. At the authorized financial entity, the importer should proceed to pay the applicable customs duties. Now, finally, step 4, which is withdrawal from customs. Upon payment of the applicable duties, the importer must present at the warehouse where the goods have been landed the original and the third copy of the import declaration form and the following additional documents: transport documents, as I said, transport origin, certificate of conformity if required. The customs officer will then authorize withdrawal of the goods unless an inspection is deemed to be necessary. Now, you may ask yourself, what should I do before importing? Well, just like any business venture, your import process should start with a thorough market case study and analysis. You should also research the import registration authorizations needed in the country you are importing or export, or from where you're importing from, and as well as tariff rates. Furthermore, customs brokers and duty payments, as well as the means of payment. Now, some documents that support your import. These are documents you're going to have to present. So you're going to have a commercial receipt, the international contract of sale, the certificate of origin, the packing list, the customs value declaration, the import license, transport document, and bill of lading. These are all just normal, run-of-the-mill import documents that you're going to be asked for in any country when importing. Now we're going to talk about the cool stuff, the types of import modalities. Starting off with ordinary import. And under this modality, the goods enter the national customs territory in order to stay permanently. The customs declaration is presented and the applicable customs taxes are paid. The merchandise is then freely available. There's a 15-day minimum opportunity to declare the goods when being imported. Secondly, we have import with franchise. It is by virtue of a treaty, agreement, or law. This enjoys total or partial exemption from custom taxes and based on which the merchandise remains in restricted disposition, except as stipulated in the norm that establishes the benefit. Moving on, we have the reimportation for passive improvement. The reimportation of merchandise temporarily exported for processing or repair will cause customs taxes to be added to the value abroad, including expenses of said operations, for which the rates corresponding to subheading will be applied, finished when it is imported, and after this, imported merchandise will then be freely available. Then we have reimportation in the same state. Now, this means that under this modality, this allows the temporary importation of capital goods as well as their parts and spare parts with suspension of custom taxes, destined to be re-exported after having been subject to repair or conditioning in a period not exceeding 6 months, and on the basis of which provision is restricted. In duly justified cases, the customs authority may authorize terms than longer than those provided in this article, up to a term equal to that initially granted. Next, we have import with compliance guarantee. All right, and now we have import in compliance guarantee. It may be imported without paying customs duties. The merchandise that in compliance with a manufacturer or supplier warranty that has been repaired abroad or replaced with another previously exported good that which has been damaged, defective, or inappropriate for the purpose for which it was imported. Merchandise like this will be freely available. Then we have temporary admission for re-exportation in the same state. It is the importation into national customs territories with suspension of custom taxes on goods destined for re-export within a specified period. There's usually two terms, which is short-term and long-term. First of all, short-term is the maximum import period will be 6 months, and then the release of merchandise extendable by the customs authority for 3 months. So in total, 9, technically. And then long-term, when it comes to capital goods and their parts and accessories needed for operation that they come in separate shipment, in the same shipment, I should say, the maximum term is 5 years, and from the release of the merchandise. Then we have temporary import for active improvement. The reimportation of merchandise exported temporarily for elaboration, repair, or transformation will cause custom taxes to be added to the value abroad, including the complementary expenses to said operations for which the tariffs corresponding to the tariff subheading of the finished product that are imported will be applied. Imported merchandise will then be freely available. Then we have temporary import for industrial processing. It is under this modality which raw materials and inputs that are going to be subject to transformation, processing, or industrial manufacturing are temporarily imported by recognized industries. The DIAN has instructions for this modality that will enable the deposit within industrial processing operations. Continuing, we have import for transformation and assembly. It is under this modality which goods are imported that are going to be subject to transformation and or assembly processes by industry recognized as such by the competent authority and authorized for the effect by the National Taxes and Customs Administration, and with basis on which this position will be restricted. The DIAN will then give instructions for the development of this modality that will enable warehouses where the goods that will be subject to the process of transformation and or assembly. Then we have temporary import for merchandise in leasing. So this means capital goods and their parts and accessories may be temporarily imported into a country when they are subject of a lease or with or without purchase option entered for a period of more than 6 months. When the duration of the lease is greater than 5 years, with the last installment corresponding to this period, the balance of taxes and customs fees yet not canceled must be paid. The merchandise may remain in the territory in the National Territory Customs Office for the term of the contract. Then we have temporary import of in development of special systems, I should say. So this is what we would call Plan Vallejo here in Colombia. It is understood by temporary importation in the development of special import-export systems, the modality that allows it to receive within the customs territory with a total or partial suspension of customs taxes merchandise destined to be exported totally or partially within a specified period after having suffered transformation, elaboration, or repair, as well as the necessary inputs for these operations. Under this modality, goods may also be intermediates, capital goods, and spare parts that are used in the production of goods for export or destined in the provision of services directly linked or export for export or these goods exports of services. Then we have postal traffic and urgent shipments. Shipments of postal correspondence, a shipment that reach the National Customs Territory through the official postage network, and express shipments, so long as their FOB value does not exceed $2,000 and require agile delivery to the recipient. Imported merchandise as established for this modality remains free of provision. This is especially useful in aid for victims of catastrophes or claims due to their special nature and because they require satisfaction with a pressing need. We also have import of commercial samples without any value. Now, what this means is under this modality, goods that are imported for promotional and advertising purposes only, or for experimentation, technical, and scientific tests as a prototype of products not intended for sale. There's some special requirements. That means that that the unit value of each item must not exceed more than $50, or more than 10 units, and more than 10 units per shipment. And then the total shipment must not exceed $1,000. Now you ask yourself, okay, we're talking about goods, but what about vehicles? Well, vehicles are a special case because we have tourist vehicles, private aircraft, and private boats. Private service aircraft and private boats for the exclusive transportation of people will be authorized for temporary import in order to perform established or maintain commercial business activities with legal entities headquartered in the national territory for the last that includes in your commercial business activity without exceeding 1 year. Tourist vehicles used as a means of transfer for private use will be authorized for temporary importation for a term of 6 months, extendable for an equal period subject to the term of tourist visa granted by the national government. The means of transport must be driven by the tourist or arrive with them for payment. Now, what about foreign and national officials? What about diplomatic immunity? Well, foreign officials they will enjoy exemption from registration or import license for the vehicle or other merchandise that they will bring as luggage, household goods, or for consumption. Release of import duties, VAT, or what we would say IVA, which is our national tax, and any other that may affect the clearance for consumption of the goods noted above. And they are allowed one vehicle every 4 years. Now, what about national officials? So Colombian officials, let's say a diplomat or a counselor that was working abroad and they want to come back with some goods. Well, these officials will dispatch to consumption without the payment of import duties, luggage, and household items brought to the country through the special declaration of admission with franchise. A vehicle with free disposal does not exceed the following FOB values. Ambassadors or heads of mission with $45,000. Other diplomatic or consular personnel, $33,000, and then administrative officials, $18,000. Thank you for staying along with us. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you were able to learn. And now I'm going to be passing it on to my coworker, Marisabel.